The Philistines play a major role in the biblical stories of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham actually makes a peace pact with the Philistines. Later, when the Israelites leave Egypt, they were admonished not to travel via the way of the Philistines, lest they see war and return. The problem is, no evidence has been found for the Philistines during the Middle Bronze Age. Were Patriarchal Philistines a thing? Stick around to the end of the video and find out. There is a consensus amongst scholars that the people that we associate with the Philistines did not enter the land of Canaan before the early 12th century BCE. In the past, these new settlers were considered to be the Peleshit, who were part of the dreaded invasion of the Sea Peoples. This was a term coined in 1885 by French Egyptologist Emmanuel de Rouge. He was the first scholar to decipher relief depicting a repelled naval invasion. On the wall of the mortuary temple of Rameses III in Medinet Habu, Egypt. Today, many scholars are of the opinion that there were a series of quote-unquote invasions over a period of time rather than them coming all at once. In fact, invasion might be the wrong term altogether, as most sites show little to no evidence of destruction. A recent DNA analysis of 10 bodies from 3 different time periods at the ancient site of Ashkelon have provided further evidence of a foreign population mixing with locals. Infants that were buried around the time the new settlers arrived show significantly more European heritage than that of the previous inhabitants. This did not last long though. Analysis of the later Philistines show that they have a genetic makeup similar to the Canaanite population that existed before the arrival of the new settlers. It seems the new residents settled peaceably and intermarried with the previous inhabitants. Despite the previously held notion, the DNA testing shows that the new settlers were a mixed lot, coming from all over the Mediterranean basin. While the origins of this additional European ancestry are not conclusive, the most plausible models point to Greece, Crete, Sardinia, and the Iberian Peninsula. This new population was markedly different than the local population. They ate pork, and their pottery is very similar to that of the Greek world at the time of their arrival. That being said, archaeological evidence in Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Gaza would seem to indicate that the new settlers had more of a connection with Cyprus than the Aegean. How can we reconcile this presence of the Philistines during the time of the patriarchs in the Exodus? Some scholars claim that the biblical Philistines at the time of the patriarchs cannot be the same Philistines that lived in Canaan in much later history. Philistine culture from these times are dissimilar. For example, the Philistines mentioned in the book of Genesis lived in the city of Gerar and were ruled by a king. The Philistines mentioned in the books of Joshua, Judges, and Samuel lived in a confederation of 5 city-states. They were ruled by 5 governing leaders known as Saranim. One would expect that if the book of Genesis was written at a later period, the author would have incorporated that which was familiar to him. Yet we don't see any indication of this relative to that which was written about the early Philistines. According to some scholars, the Philistines mentioned in the book of Genesis must have been an earlier group of Aegean migrants that settled in Canaan. A Minoan Linear A inscription was found on a pottery shard dated to the Middle Bronze Age at the site of Tel Harar. Tel Harar is the preferred site for the ancient city of Gerar. This pottery did not match the local pottery or the pottery that originated from Crete. Professor Gary A. Rendsburg of Rutgers University very cautiously claims that if indeed the site of Tel Harar is the ancient city of Gerar, and if the historicity of Genesis Philistines is to be believed, it leaves open the possibility of the previous held notion of Proto-Philistines. I personally asked Professor Aaron Mayer of Bar-Ilan University his thoughts on this find. He answered me that such a scant find is inconclusive and it only can be used to prove that there was trade happening between other places and the inhabitants of Tel Harar. An ancient Jewish tradition might provide the key to this issue, although it is worth noting that it would be very difficult to use this evidence in an academic setting. That is due to the fact that the Talmudic source that I am about to share with you dates from a much later period. That being said, it seems that the answer to this issue of Patriarchal Philistines was preserved in a comment to the verse in Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 23. The verse says the following: "And the Avim that dwelt in the villages as far as Gaza, the Caphtorim that came from Caphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their stead." The Babylonian Talmud says something very interesting. The great Talmudic scholar, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, asked the question, why is it that we need this verse? It's frivolous and is out of place. It's not in the context of what we're explaining within the chapter. He answers the following: "Since Abimelech, king of the Philistines, administered an oath to Abraham that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my grandson, the Jewish people were prohibited from conquering the land of the Philistines until 4 generations had passed. Therefore the Holy One, blessed be He, said, let the Caphtorim come and remove the land from the Avim, who are the same as the Philistines, and let the Israelites come and remove it from the Caphtorim, thus circumventing the prohibition." According to this rabbinic teaching, the Philistines in the time of Abraham were synonymous with the Avim. They were not the Philistines of later times, i.e. the Caphtorim. The Avim were Canaanites and would therefore be archaeologically indistinguishable from the other locals in the area. The later Philistines, the Caphtorim in this rabbinic teaching, are of foreign origin. It is true that the later Philistines didn't destroy the locals as stated in the Talmudic passage, as we know from archaeological evidence, but their material culture did dominate what was previously known. What is amazing about this passage, in my opinion, is that it was written at least 1,400 years before this anachronistic problem was known to modern scholars. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, if you got benefit out of that, please make sure to like and subscribe, and check me out on my social media platforms listed down below. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.